Good morning, guys. Roxanne, can we get started? Good morning, guys. I hope you all got a nice warm cup of coffee this morning and ready for our first of 4 sessions. Trevor, Clark, and myself are going to be chatting a little bit about business, particularly for you entrepreneurs, to make sure that your businesses are geared up and ready for the year ahead, and hopefully for next year ahead as well, if you guys have been strategic in your business planning. But also to make sure for those of you who are in business that all the foundations and stuff are already set, so that you can make sure that what you're building in terms of a business is secure. Roxanne, if you can please go to the next slide for me. So this diagram really just illustrates a little bit about the journey that we take clients on in terms of their entrepreneurship. And I think what's very important to understand is that there are so many people that are in business today by mere chance. You may have inherited a business or been an employee of a business and you've now taken over. You may have been retrenched or started a business because you understand a trade. But most business people today don't necessarily understand real business. They just understand a craft. So what we've done as Quattro and with ActionCOACH is try and put together a program where you're able to literally plug your business in and almost go through a graduation process without learning all the bad mistakes yourself, but rather learning from others' mistakes so that you don't have to pay that price. I think what's very important, if you look at planning, a lot of people have got coaches and stuff in place, and they are a very, very important component in a business, be it a personal coach or a business coach. But what we have found is that people are building businesses, think of it like a house. They've got a house, and now they want to make it a double story or a triple story. They're building these businesses and adding on and adding on and adding on, but never ever looking at the structure and the foundations of the business to make sure that these things are actually rock solid and are in place. So when we look at the structural side of the business, we're looking at your statutory stuff, things like your memorandum of incorporation, to make sure it's been drafted properly. Your shareholders agreements, if you have more than one person involved as a business owner, to understand the conduct of the business and the conduct of the shareholders, and what directors' roles and responsibilities are, what shareholders' responsibilities are, voting rights, the funding of a business, if the business breaks up or the partnership becomes irreparable. How do you address these challenges? And this is where we fit in as Quattro. We come in from the grassroots level, even if you're already in business, and we start with your shareholders agreements and your memorandum of incorporation, and we check to make sure that everything is consistent with what you need in order to build your business on. Then through our mentorship and our guidance, our business intelligence programs and accounting software that we're able to develop for you, customized for your business, you are able to grow this business and graduate to a point where you now have things like personal coaches and action coaches to come in, and they literally take your business from a 3 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. But it's so important that you have all these components taken care of, not just going and building this massive empire and only finding out all the cracks and the structural defects when something goes wrong. Sorry, Rox, can you change to the next slide? Thank you. All right, so what we're going to be discussing today is just some business protection plans, the types of products you can use, things to look out for, and then the implementation of the correct structure. And then we're going to be handing over straight through to Trevor. So what we do as financial advisors, really, if you understand proper financial planning, if you're a business owner, your business generally would form the foundation of your financial plan. And then personal insurances and stuff just top up the difference. So just to give you an example of what I'm speaking about, if you've got a business that is worth 3 million Rand, just as an example, and on your death, there is an ability to mobilize the plan. In other words, the business gets sold, and the 3 million Rand assets now becomes cash in your estate. That money is now left for your spouse or your children or your financial dependents as the foundation of your plan to live off. Once you've done your financial plan with your advisor, you might find that you actually need 10 million Rand in terms of a bequest for your spouse to continue the life that they're accustomed to. The 3 million will be the foundation. You'd then be short 7 million, and your personal financial plan would then be the 7 million top up. As your business grows in value and you get to 5 million in terms of the value, you're now only short 5 million, so your personal financial plan would reduce from 7 million to 5 million. When your business grows to 8 million, your personal plan will then reduce to 2 million. And eventually, hopefully, you've saved up enough wealth of your own and accumulated enough assets of your own that you no longer require personal insurance policies anymore. And all that money that you were spending on these insurance policies would then be redirected towards investment to grow your wealth even further. So it actually builds up your wealth a hell of a lot quicker by doing this regularly and having regular updates with your financial plan. Roxanne, can we get the next slide, please? What we're going to be discussing today is, the first one is buy and sell, or business continuity planning. And then the second topic we're going to discuss is contingent liability, which is probably the biggest hole in people's portfolios. They just sometimes don't understand how these things work and how to mitigate themselves from any risks associated with them. So with continuity planning, we refer to it as buy and sell. Buy and sell is really an agreement between business partners, shareholders, or members of a CC. It's an agreement that deals with the shares or members' interests in the event of a death or a disability. Now, a lot of people that we consult with, when we first engage, they say, don't worry, I've already got this, it's sorted, I've done a buy and sell. And in the discussion, what we find is that they have an insurance policy that the advisor has sold them. And how it would work generally is that I've got a business partner, let's call him Brett, and on Brett's death, I need to buy his shares, and I've decided to use an insurance policy to finance the transaction. So I would take a policy out on Brett's life, and then Brett would insure me, and he would take a policy out on my life. Now, those policies is not buy and sell. Those policies are financing vehicles for the buy and sell. The buy and sell is the actual agreement that says, when I die, what happens to my shares? It compels my estate to sell the shares that I own, and it compels my partner to buy the shares. In common law, we've got a thing called preemptive rights, which is generally taken care of in your memorandum of incorporation or your shareholders agreement. Now, preemptive rights, what it means is that if my shares come up for sale, I have to offer those shares to my existing shareholders in proportion to their current shareholding. So if I've got 3 other shareholders, those 3 shareholders would have first right of refusal, for want of a better word, the first option to buy the shares. That's what a preemptive right is. But what a preemptive right doesn't do, it doesn't compel them to buy the share. So what would happen is, in the event of my death, Brett's got a policy on my life. We haven't got this buy and sell agreement in place. My executor, who deals with my estate, the person who winds up my will, he will then contact my shareholders and say, Brett, Gary is deceased. We own these shares in this business. Would you like to buy them in terms of your preemptive rights? Brett could decline the offer and say, look, I don't want the shares, please. Thank you very much. And he can refuse to buy. What it means now is that my executor now has to find a buyer for my shares, or my will might say that I can bequeath those shares to my wife. The problem is that Brett has got this insurance policy on my life. And when I died, the insurance company paid him out, let's call it 10 million Rand, for the purchase of my shares. So my partner has got 10 million Rand in after-tax cash given to him by the insurer, but no compulsion to give that 10 million to my family. My family were dependent on the 10 million Rand because I did my financial plan with my advisor, and in my plan, the 10 million was going to be there to give my wife enough capital to invest so she could live off it. Now, all she's got is shares that are in her name because my will has now bequeathed them to her. The problem is my wife has now become Brett's new business partner. She knows nothing about the business at all. She's never been involved in the business. She doesn't understand the business. She doesn't want to understand the business. She was just quite happy to continue the life that she'd been living previously. But suddenly she's now forced into a business relationship with someone she's got no value add to give to him. So Brett's got a skill, Jackie's got a skill, but the 2 skills don't do anything to the business. Brett needs another Gary. Now justification starts to creep in because my wife is sitting with 10 million Rand short that she thought she was going to get. She then comes to Brett and says, look, I'm not an employee of this business, but I need money. I need 30, 40, 50,000 Rand a month income that I would have got from the 10 million Rand sale. Now I haven't got it. I need money. And Brett says to her, well, you're not an employee here, so I can't pay you a salary. Only thing I can do is give you a dividend as a shareholder, but I can only pay you dividends if we make any profits. Now, the problem is that the company might not be declaring dividends. It's a private company and not a listed company. There's potentially no dividend policy in place in our shareholders agreement. So there's no governance around what dividends will be declared, when they'll be declared, and if they can be declared. So my wife is literally held to ransom now in the hope that a dividend gets declared. At the end of the year, fortuitously, the company's made a profit and Brett pays 50% of the dividend to my wife and he takes 50%. And suddenly he starts to think about it and go, you know what, I'm doing all the work here. I'm taking on my roles and responsibilities, Gary's responsibilities he used to have, and I'm giving half the profits away every single year. It's not really fair. So I want a salary increase. So he approaches Jackie and says, look, I'm doubling my salary because I'm doing twice the amount of work and it's not fair. Jackie then says, hold the boat. If you draw more salary, it means there's less profits. And if there's less profits, there's less dividend. I need the dividend. You can't draw more salary. Now suddenly we're into a dividend versus salary debate. And Jackie can't just step into the business and start demanding a salary because she's not skilled in that business. So it creates a very, very hostile environment if it's not governed properly. So if you've got a policy on your business partner's life, but you don't have a buy and sell agreement, then you don't have buy and sell. You have to have the agreement. The agreement will force the buy and sell to take place, the transfer of cash and shares from the estate and from the surviving partner. So your family gets fair value and your partner retains the shares in the business. The buy and sell agreement also dictates the value and the valuation method and how it's going to be paid for. In the agreement, it says, when I die, you will buy me out for 10 million rand. It's stated. So I know what the foundation of my financial plan is because I've got a contract that says when I die, you're going to give me 10 million. So I know I've got 10 million coming in. I'll work out what I need. And if there's a shortfall, I'll take personal insurance to top up the difference. The payment plan is essential. When I die, is Brett going to pay me 10 million rand at 1 rand a month, at 10,000 rand a month, at R1 million a month? Is it R1 million a year? Is he going to be paying cash? Is he going to be borrowing money? Or is he going to be taking a policy out on my life to finance it? And when it comes down to it, insurance policies on each other's lives is actually just the cheapest, most practical way to finance the buy and sell agreement. And the simple reason for that is that if Brett had to buy my shares for 10 million rand and he had to use his own money and not insure me, he would actually need to earn himself about 16 million rand, 17 million rand in income, pay 45% tax to net 10 million rand. So his acquisition cost for my shares would actually be in the region of about 16 million in order to buy in earnings. He'll be working for the rest of his life and giving all his income to my wife just to pay for the shares. So it wouldn't really be economically viable for Brett to behave in accordance with that agreement. It would probably incentivize him to try and breach the agreement because paying my estate would just be too penal. So insurance policies are much easier because Brett can take a policy out on my life and you pay 1,500 rand a month as a premium. And when I die, he gets given 10 million rand tax-free cash in order to do the transfer. Much easier, much more affordable. The next thing we need to discuss is just how the policy is structured, premiums paid by partners, the 3 Ps. And this is very important. A lot of people get this wrong. In the estate duty calculations that your executor does, your life policy that is owned on your life is estate duty law. What that means is receiver of revenue wants 20% of the proceeds. So when I die, Brett's going to get 10 million rand in cash. SARS would ordinarily take 2 million of it. But if it's structured correctly, it qualifies for an estate duty exemption. And the estate duty exemption for the 3 Ps is really very simple. Firstly, the premiums need to be paid by the partners. In other words, Brett has to be my business partner when I die. Roxanne, can you change the next slide, please? He needs to be my partner when I die. In other words, if the shares are held by my trust, if my trust owns the shares in the company and Brett is my partner, he's not really, in law, he's not actually my business partner. My trust is Brett's business partner because my trust is the shareholder. So I would fall foul of the first P, partners. In order for the estate duty exemption to work, I would need to have the shares and I would need to be the life insured. Brett would need to have the shares and Brett be the life insured. So partnership at death is important. The second P is purpose. The reason for the existence of this policy needs to be to buy my shares. In other words, it's for a buy and sell. So you have a buy and sell agreement between the two of you. Now, if you don't have the agreement, you just got the policies, you're going to fall foul of the purpose. What the policy does is actually create an incentive for Brett just to behave badly, as I said earlier. In this environment, if I died without the agreement, he would get paid the 10 million rand. My estate would be liable for the estate duty of 2 million. So my wife and kids would lose 2 million rand in estate duty and then try and recover it from Brett. So you've got to make sure that you've got this agreement in place and that the second P is fulfilled, the purpose. And then the last P is premium. The premium has to be paid by your partners. It cannot be paid by yourself. If I use my personal insurance policy for buy and sell, I will fall foul of the premium being paid by my partner only. If you have paid 1 cent of your own premium, your policy is estate dutiable and you cannot fix it. But if you've structured it correctly, your premiums are paid by your partners, your buy and sell agreement is in place for the purpose, and you are partners, you'll qualify for the estate duty exemption. Now, this is something that you need to interrogate. Even if you've got a buy and sell, and you've got a buy and sell agreement, you need to get it reviewed to make sure that it's actually been done in accordance with the exemption provisions. And if there are any transgressions, we need to intervene and try and remedy it as fast as possible. So the things to look out for with buy and sell. Firstly, make sure you've got a memorandum of incorporation that is drafted specifically for your business relationship. The second thing with a memorandum of incorporation is make sure that you have taken into account preemptive rights. In the new MOIs that we see today, most people go for the most cost-effective way of getting an MOI. So you phone your accountant or your lawyer and you say, listen, I need a vanilla MOI. I don't want to pay lots of money. Just give me one. That MOI might mention preemptive rights, but it only applies to your business if you issue new shares. The preemptive rights applies to the issuing of the new shares, not the shares that are already in issue. You would need to alter your memorandum of incorporation to include issued shares as well as the issuing of the new shares. Another very important thing, the memorandum of incorporation in terms of the Companies Act takes precedence to any shareholders agreements that you draft. So you need to make sure that your memorandum does not contradict anything in your buy and sell agreement or your shareholders agreements, because if it does, the memorandum of incorporation will take precedence. And this is where we see lots of problems coming up. We've just dealt with a client now, we're dealing with a client now who died, and they thought that they were in a 50-50 partnership. But when we actually got all the details, we found out that they actually have no shares. They've been acting and working as though they're 50-50, but the one shareholder actually owned all the shares. Another case we've been working on recently where the shareholders, the one shareholder had ordinary shares, the other one had preference shares. But when you look at the memorandum of incorporation, there's no mention of preference shares. It only talks about ordinary shares. The ordinary shares have got the ones with voting rights, and it actually goes on to say that no other class of share has been issued or will be issued. So you've got a person who's got shares that actually don't exist. So it's very, very important to please get consultation around your memorandum and your shareholders agreements. Be careful what benefits are on your buy and sell policies if you've got them. Watch your disability definitions. A lot of agreements we see terminology that they use, or the definitions that they use in the agreement for disability, differs from the definitions in the insurance policy that finance the transaction. So in layman's terms, your agreement might call for you to buy the shares or sell shares on disability in terms of a definition, but the policy definition, because it's different, might not pay the money. So you could be in a situation where you get disabled, your partner is compelled to buy you out, but the policy that funds the transaction doesn't kick in, and suddenly he can't pay. You don't get your money, you're disabled, and you're a shareholder, and you don't have any ability to run your business. He is compelled to buy you for 10 million bucks, which is going to cost him 16 million rands worth of pre-tax income, and he hasn't got the money to do it because the policy didn't pay. You've got to make sure the definitions are actually consistent with each other in the funding product as well as in your agreement. Check about terminal illness. If you're diagnosed to die within 12 months, you get that dreaded phone call from the doctor. I'm sorry, Bob, but the test results have come back and it's terminal. You've got 12 months to live. If you ever faced with that situation, be it on your life or your shareholder's life, your insurance policy's life cover actually pays out. Now, can you imagine being diagnosed terminally ill, the policy pays out to your partner, but your partner's got no compulsion to use the money to buy your shares because you're not dead yet. You die young, but you're not dead, and you're not disabled. They've got 10 million rands worth of starting capital to open up another business next door, pinch the clients, steal the staff, wind the business that you're in down to nothing, and they've got a 2 million rand capex to spend on their new business and 8 million rands worth of change, and you sitting with a defunct business whilst you're dying, and it's just getting eroded over time, and you're too sick to intervene. Guys, this happens. We see this many, many, many times. Please do not take this lightly. It really happens. That story, money make funny, I cannot tell you how true it is. I pray that your business partners don't ever do that, but the reality is justification sometimes alters people's brain waves, and they start to think a little bit creatively and a bit differently, and justification starts to creep in, and they feel that it's justified that they're doing what they're doing. And you can never argue with that. Repudiations of claims due to non-disclosure. We've come across these before as well, where your business partner forgot to tell the medical practitioners when he did his medical for the insurance that he had cancer 3 years ago. He dies 2 years later, and the insurer declines the claim because of non-disclosure, and suddenly your agreement that you've got, your buy and sell, is a legal agreement, compels you to buy, but the policy is not paying. Very penal for you. So you've got to make sure that you are protected from that. The expiration of benefits as well. People get to 65, the disability cover expires at 65, and you're still in business, and your partner gets disabled from a car crash at 66. What happens? And then the last one is trust and company ownership. If your shares or your business partner shares are held by another holding company or by a trust, you have to get proper financial advice, because this whole environment changes dramatically. So if you don't have agreements in place, some of the horrible stories is your surviving partner could trade the business down to nothing, keep the policy on your life as starting capital and keep the change, and your wife or family end up with nothing. You may find with no agreement that your partner doesn't want to buy the shares and says, don't worry, Mr. Executor, you sell them to someone else. But the executor never finds a third party to buy those shares because of hostility. Every time the new buyer comes up and puts his hand up, you attend a meeting and you just act aggressively with the guy and he runs away. This happens very frequently. If there's no valuation method as well, it's very, very important to address, because at what value are you going to buy? I've insured you for 10 million, you die, you come to, your wife comes to me or your executive comes to me and says, right, buy for 10 million. And I say, no, I'm going to give you 1 million. And you say, but you can't give me 1, you insured me for 10. And I say, well, the valuation we're going to use is the net asset value of the business. You were pivotal in the business. The fact that you're gone now, this business is worth nothing. So why must I pay more? So you've got to make sure that the value and valuation method are documented, and that will ensure that your family gets true value out of this disposition. If you don't have a buy and sell, your competitor might become your new partner, or your ex-wife's partner, your trustees, your ex-partner's trustees. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. The last topic I wanted just to chat around is around sureties. This is probably the biggest hole that people have, that is just a total non-event. People just don't even identify this as a risk area. This is where you borrow money for your business. Very, very simply put, my business requires new machinery. We need to buy printing machines to the value of 20 million Rand. We finance the machine and the company. We take a 20 million Rand loan out with the bank. The bank asks us to sign a whole lot of documents, and in these documents are the sureties. Sureties could be for the business only. In other words, the business stands as the guarantee to repay the debt. Most small to medium-sized businesses don't actually have the financial standing to stand surety on their own. And what it's requiring then is for the shareholders to sign a personal surety as well. And the sureties that we see are generally joint and several sureties. So what that means is, Brett and Gary buy this machine for 20 million Rand. We finance 20 million Rand with the bank, and we sign the surety. In the event of my death, the bank can go to my estate for 20 million Rand, or they can go to the company for 20 million, or they can go to Brett for 20 million, because we have signed jointly and severally for 20 million each. There's no limit. It's 20 million joint and several. The other way of structuring a surety is to say, look, Brett's a 50% shareholder and I'm a 50% shareholder. So the company will sign for the 20 million, but I will sign personal surety for 10 of the 20, and Brett will sign for 10 of the 20. That's called a joint and several surety, but it's limited to our shareholding, 50-50, 10 million each. When I die, the bank can come to my estate, Brett, or the business in order to redeem that money. And the reason why the bank can come and do this is when you read your documentation, you'll find more often than not that the excusation clause has been waived. And what that means is that the bank do not have to follow the normal route of debt redemption, where they go to the company for the money. They are allowed to go to the place where the cash is lying, the easiest place to mitigate their risk, which is the deceased estate, because all the insurance policies have paid, there's a whole lot of cash in there. They just go, take the 10 million out your estate, settle the company debt. Now it's up to your estate to try and recover that money from the business or from your partner. And your estate hasn't got a surety between your company and your partner, so you don't have a leg to stand on. All you can do is ask. And if it's denied, all you can do is go civil and try and sue. And that takes years. But in the meantime, your family is destitute. Your estate is potentially insolvent because of this liability that has been settled for the business that you've just sold to your partner. I died. Brett paid 10 million into my estate for my shares. The limited surety was 10 million. The bank came and took the 10 million Rand that Brett's just paid for my shares to pay off the machine in the company. So Brett owns the business 100%. 10 million of the debt has been paid with the proceeds of my buy and sell, and my wife and kids have got no money. So guys, please, if you've signed a surety, get that surety to us. Let us look at it and make sure that those risks are mitigated, because there's a plan that you can put in place, which is called a contingent liability plan. Once you put the plan in place, an agreement is drafted in order to protect your estate from the company's debt. So if you are of the opinion that you do not want to cover the liability, you don't want to pay any premiums on life cover or anything for this business to insure you against the debt, I just want to reaffirm one thing, is to say that if you've signed a personal surety, you have covered the debt already, but you've covered it with your own after-tax assets. In other words, when you sign personal surety, you are saying, take my house, take my company shares, take my share portfolio, take anything that I've got. Take my granny, take my goldfish. You can take everything I've got, and it's all after-tax money because it's stuff that you've earned already and you've invested. So it's post-tax money. Where what you should have done is just taken an insurance policy out on your life that the company owns, the company pays for, and the company is the beneficiary. When you die, the company gets the 10 million rand from the insurer. It settles the liability, which releases your estate from its obligation, and the agreement that we draft compels the company to use the proceeds to do that. You can't just take the policy out, because if you die and you haven't got the agreement, the policy can pay into the company, which your partner can keep. He doesn't have to use that money to settle the liability. The bank can still come to your estate and take the 10 million. So you have to have the agreement. So that's really it on contingent liability. If you don't have a plan in place, your estate will have to settle the debts, your assets will be sold, and your cash flow will dry up completely for your spouse, and your estate could be led and declared insolvent. So it's not a pretty sight if you don't make provision for that. So guys, we can have some questions and answers afterwards. If you'd like to have a chat, or if you'd like to chat personally, you can give us a shout. I would now like to introduce Trevor to you. Trevor is with ActionCOACH. He's been coaching for many, many years, and he's been one of the top coaches in South Africa. We do a lot of work with Trevor around coaching and stuff. A lot of our clients go for mentoring and coaching with him, and a lot of his clients come to us, and we help fix all of their cracks and holes in the foundations of their businesses. So we're co-collaborating on this seminar. So I'd like to hand over to Trevor now, who's going to help you just get geared up for your business for the year ahead and make sure that you've got the right methods in place to make sure that you have some success. So Trevor, over to you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary. Just double checking, there's my sound okay and you guys can hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Brilliant. No, fantastic, but nice job there. And exactly that. So for those of you that I've met before, good to have you on the call, and others, yeah, my name's Trevor Clark. I have a business called ActionCOACH Business Coaching, and we do exactly that, mentor and coach business owners, entrepreneurs, helping them build more profitable businesses. But importantly, one of the key things that we do a lot is, yes, you could have a profitable business, and more importantly, most of us want a business that works without us, because what we see out there in the market is a lot of people own a business, but in reality, they own a job. Whereas, if you know the drill, if you don't get to work that day, everything falls down, or we're not profitable on the days we're not there. So a lot of the work we're doing with people is getting profits up and helping people with their marketing and sales and their finances, but also helping getting the systems in place and helping people recruit the right teams to run those systems for them. Because when you have that in place, you actually can have a bit of freedom and the sort of lifestyle that often can come with entrepreneurship if we get the guts right. But importantly, if you see the definition I've put up there, we also have to make sure we have a commercial business. And very often that's the area that people don't look at. Is it a real business? Is it up and running, fulfilling a real need? And as Gary said, a lot of that time is working in the foundations and drilling down and actually knowing exactly what's working, what's not working, getting those fundamentals in place. And most business owners, most entrepreneurs are too busy to spend the time looking in that area. So yeah, for sure. What we do is we work with one another's clients, but we put a lot of our clients across onto Gary and his team to look at those fundamentals. So a quick nutshell, how do we get a business profitable and working without you? There's a roadmap, and I've put the slide up in front of you here. Just like building a house, you start at the foundations. In my world, we call that mastery, where we make sure we work on a stable base and getting the financials in place, getting the goals in place. Once that's in place, then we work on, we use the word niche, but that basically means marketing and sales and making sure that we're building a big database, closing deals, and taking really good care of our clients. The next step is, once we're profitable, we want to work on our systems inside the business and making sure we leverage to get us some proper organization charts and job descriptions, how-to manuals, really getting all those things out. And usually all the systems in a business are in the owner's head. We need to get those out of the owner's head and get it into paper, systematized to a level that the team can run with those together. When we have the systems, we bring in the team and do a lot of recruiting the right people and getting more out of the existing people. And if you see the top levels, there's synergy and results. Synergy is a level a business gets to where the owner doesn't have to be there 24/7. When you start having that luxury of only working mornings or taking the odd couple of days off here and there, or possibly to that point where you can even hire a general manager or an operations manager to work on that for you. But I really just want to drill down just for 5 minutes quickly as we're getting this series going, just on a key area on the foundation side. We're going to go in as Gary mentioned, we're going to be doing a couple of talks like this and building this as a series. So we're going to be sharing other good content with you guys that you can look at, things to consider inside your business. We'll be looking at marketing. We'll be looking at some ideas. I'll be giving you a roadmap on how to systematize your business a lot better. But like anything, the more time you spend on the foundations, the easier your work is further down the line. So for sure, the mastery area that I really want to drill down, and just for your interest, there's such an important level of the foundations. My business that I actually own is called Business Mastery Pty Limited, because it's such an important area not to lose focus on. Getting the goals in place, looking at these things that Gary's covering with you guys. And Gary, I think, only touched a small number of the things that need to be looked at behind the scenes on the strength of the business. One of the things I just wanted to talk about is the area of mental mastery or mindset mastery, because it's often an area overlooked. We're so busy looking at new marketing strategies and new technical strategies and products and R&D and efficiency. But often people aren't taking the time just to kind of consider where they're at in the business. As the business owner or owners, are you building that mental resilience inside the business? But also you're looking at this stuff for your teams. In Q&A separately, Gary, you might be able to share with the guys when we have a few minutes to wrap up some of the stuff you were sharing with me around the insurance industry and the amount of claims around for sort of mental health, that kind of thing, because people are under a lot of stress. At the best of times, business can be stressful, but then we add in COVID and lockdown and all the additional stress that's happening with business owners, with their teams, that there's a lot of additional issues there. So what are those things that you can do to take stock of your own level in terms of mindset, mental health? So if you don't mind, Roxanne, do you mind just putting up that poll for us? I'd just like to think about it. Now, some of you might be boxing fans, some of you might not. Roxanne will be putting a little multiple choice poll up on your screens. And if you don't mind, just answer the question there. I've just taken this poll, not on active fighters at the moment. So some of you might be boxing fans, some might not. Some might have a rough idea of some of the characters in the boxing world. But if you don't mind, just answer those questions quickly. Who is the greatest fighter in recent times in terms of non-active? And I'd just like to give you, just maybe take 10 or 20 seconds. Some people might have the poll, might not, but just quickly put in your answers there, because I want to very quickly just see what the response is. So I'm going to give you 5 or 10 seconds quickly, or let's make it another 5 seconds. Click on that poll, and Roxanne, if you don't mind, let's see how many answers we got so far and feed that back. Yeah, there we go. So we had 21% of the votes for Rocky Marciano. We had 7% of the votes for George Foreman, 71% for Muhammad Ali, and Shane Paul. Joe Lewis got 0 votes. Okay, great. Thanks for that. I'm going to close that off. So 71% voted for Muhammad Ali. And have a look at my next slide here. You'll realize that I'm a bit of a mind reader. How did I know that 71% of our delegates would vote for Muhammad Ali? And you see, I use that word, the greatest. Who was the greatest fighter? Now, Muhammad Ali owns that phrase. He used to call himself the greatest. He'd have journalists call himself the greatest. And we've all been programmed to believe that Muhammad Ali is the greatest fighter out there. And I think what's so important is that Muhammad Ali actually programmed himself to believe that he was the greatest fighter out there. Now, obviously, statistics can be used in many different ways. And everybody will interpret statistics in many, according generally to their own beliefs. We all have a certain belief, and we'll find the statistics that support our own belief. But if we look at the stats, and obviously there's a lot, so I've just chosen a couple of shortlists here. But if you look at ESPN globally, didn't even put Ali in the top 10 hardest hitters. George Foreman, a lot more career wins than Ali, and incredibly a lot more knockouts than Ali. Whereas Ali had 56 wins, Joe Lewis had 66 career wins, and that was out of only 69 fights. Rocky Marciano, I mean, that was never done before. The only person to end a career with a 100% perfect record, never lost a single fight. out of interest, one of my colleagues in the UK actually shared these, in the States actually shared these, this idea with us just recently, and we dug down on it a little bit further. A lot of people always came up with Mike Tyson, saying, why is Mike Tyson not in the questions? I took Mike out of it deliberately because Mike is actually making a comeback at the moment. And he's actually got a fight coming up in September of this year. But look at that, 50 wins out of 58 fights. So just this, and I've just taken a handful of stats here to show you guys. These stats would argue that Muhammad Ali might not actually be the greatest boxer in our times. Now, we all have our fans. But isn't that interesting that most of us believed that he was the greatest? And you can spend a bit of time on this, and just Muhammad Ali is just an amazing example of mental toughness and actually programming your mind a lot more than you condition your body. Because yes, we've got to be in the gym and we've got to do the work, but if we're not mentally strong and believing we can do and achieve the goals, we're going to be dead in the water. So this is something that we need to work on together, as well as our teams, is do we truly believe our what we can achieve? Now, some of you might, so a lot of people would say, well, how do I achieve mental toughness? Because as we grow ourselves in our business, yes, we want results. And for me, some of you might have come across this before, we call it the identity iceberg. As human beings, all of us, we're this iceberg. When we interact with one another, we only see what's above the surface. Just like an iceberg, there's a lot more below the surface. So when you interacting with another person, you don't know what's happening in the back of their mind. What is governing our behavior? So we want to improve our behavior in order to get better results, but the behavior is what we witness, the actions we take, the decisions we make. To really get great results, we need to work below the surface. So for sure, the first thing is skills. If we want better results, we've got to work on skills. We've got to do more courses, read more books, work with a coach, a mentor, get back into college. There's a lot, and there's so much skill work that we can do in business at the moment, online courses and programs that we can do. And to take it back to the boxing analogy, skills is doing the work. That's getting in the ring and training and training and training and training. But training will only get us so far. Values are a huge driver of belief, of behavior. And you'll often understand somebody's values by their behavior, because our behavior is driven by that. So that's why it's important to, if you haven't yet, have you documented your company value sets? What are your company values? Because obviously our team come from all sorts of different backgrounds, might have different personal values, but it's an important one to document, to say under this roof, this is the behavior that's acceptable or not acceptable. Beliefs is what we've been talking about here. And our beliefs are a tough one to work on, because our beliefs are pre-programmed in us from a very young age. How many people, I mean, I've been working with clients over the years that have had teachers at a young age saying, oh, you better get yourself a trade because you'll never understand accounting, or you'll never own a business because you're X. And we've had teachers or grandparents or significant elders in our lives programming these beliefs in us. And these are beliefs that people carry right through to adulthood. So please remember that your brain is a machine. Your brain doesn't know what's right. Your brain doesn't know what's wrong. Your brain only knows what you feed it. So think of Muhammad Ali as an example. All the time, I am the greatest, I'm the greatest. You've never seen anybody as great as me. And obviously, you watch out for where you get borderline arrogant, but you can see the results of what happened there. And it might not be the greatest. It's what do you believe about your business? What do you believe about what your business can become over time? So do you have a very clear picture of what that business is going to look like if you do the work? Identity, again, another key driver of us. I am. How do people see themselves? What is that? What is the sign you have on your office door or on your business card? Or what are those things that we say to ourselves? I meet people all the time will tell me, I'm bad at maths, or I'm bad at remembering numbers, I'm bad at remembering names. People keep telling themselves those things. That frames their identity, and they see themselves as somebody that's bad at numbers. So we need to change the language that we are using, because yes, it's about convincing our opponents, if you take it back into the ring, but more importantly, are we convincing ourselves of what we are capable of? So it's an important time now more than ever to be really focusing on this stuff. We'll get into all the technical side of business a little bit later, but also importantly, our environment is a huge, huge driver of our behavior. Who are you surrounding yourself with? The people that you sit with at work, the people that you associate with on your weekends and the evenings. Is it positive people that believe in you and believe in your cause? Or are you surrounding yourself with people that are pulling you down? And that's a key thing to say, what is it? If you really want those results, we need to be taking a good hard look at all these things below the surface and saying, what can we do about each of those? And then I was digging in Google and I found this amazing quote, a lovely young photograph of a young Cassius Clay back in the day. I'm the greatest, and I've been saying that long before I actually knew I was the greatest, long before I came the greatest. The programming of beliefs has to start early, and if you don't work on this stuff in your own mind and that with your teams, today's the day to start working on this stuff if we really want to achieve, really want to build a great business. So I just wanted to share this with you very briefly, and then I'll wrap up and hand us over to Q&A.
Your belief is your greatest power. Use it, change it, develop it, harness it. What you believe about yourself determines who you become. Do you believe you'll soon succeed and achieve? Do you believe you can add massive value to yourself, to your business, to your marketplace? Do you believe in win-win? Do you believe you will fulfill your potential? Do you believe in yourself, your actions, your decisions, your behaviors? What you believe determines what you become. You're in charge of what you believe. Your beliefs can break you or they can make you. Your beliefs determine the rest of your life. Your beliefs today will affect tomorrow, your income, your success, your health, what you do, and what you attract. You have to expect things of yourself before you can do them. Henry Ford, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Good or bad, your beliefs will shape your future. Be strong and be shaped by a vision of your future self. See it, feel it, and believe it. You're in charge of the greatest force you have, your beliefs. You get to choose them. You get to empower them. You get to feel them. When is now your time? It's much easier to stay average and have average beliefs, much easier than stepping out of your comfort zone. It's much easier to stay average than it is to push through your challenges. It's easier to stay average than face the pain of discipline, face the pain of going for it, face the pain of courage. Yet, it's much harder to live with being average than pushing forwards to becoming the very best you can be. To wake up each day knowing today will be average at best is much more exhausting. So choose to forge forward. Be brilliant. Become a serial achiever. Become a serial winner. It takes energy either way. Choose to become the winner. If you want to have an incredible, successful life, then you need to believe that success is your only option. Jim Rohn, if you want to upgrade your life, then upgrade your mindset first. Napoleon Hill, if you have a mindset that's always looking for success and improvement, you'll find it. Brad Sugars, when you find meaning in your work, you'll find success in your work. Strong beliefs attract success. Weak beliefs guarantee failure. Strong beliefs will make you find a way to succeed. Why? Because beliefs are your greatest power. Your time is limited. Your beliefs are endlessly possible. Empower them. Be strong. You're in charge. Take this opportunity, grab it with both hands, and go for it. You choose what you think, you choose what you do, you choose how you behave, you choose who you become. Mind shifts happen when you begin believing. You get what you tolerate, and what you tolerate is dependent on what you believe. Set some new standards, set some new expectations, empower some strong beliefs, respect yourself, and use your beliefs to turn thought into actual success. Stand out, stand proud, stand up, stand firm, be strong, be cool, be loyal, be kind, think big, and believe. Do it and do it again. Believe it and do it again. Believe it and do it again and again and again. And you'll become the best version of you.
So I thought that would be useful. I know it resonates a lot with me when I was still looking a lot at this stuff. And yeah, as we're going to go forward in the series, we're going to be working on a number of different areas in the business as we grow a better business here. We'll be looking at marketing, sales, systems, all those things, but we're going to look at these foundations. Give me a shout. I can help you with that sort of stuff because there's a lot of tools that we use with businesses in that space. But the other key area, obviously, on the foundations is getting Gary and the team to look at the technical and contractual foundations inside the business. So yeah, there's our details. You'll find us online on Facebook, Action Coach Business Mastery. You'll find us, and but reach out separately if we can help in any of those areas. Gary, I'm going to close this off close off the screen so we can open it up to Q&A if anybody's got any specific issues or questions they'd like to bounce off us.
Perfect. Thanks, Trev. That was awesome. I must tell you something. I was just thinking about whilst you were showing the video. I attended a webinar last week about self-love. And when we were chatting, a lot of the people were they were self-conscious about it. It's like self-love might sound like you're being arrogant, or self-love might sound like you're vain, or whatever it might be.
Yes.
But the true sense of self-love was, or the message was, is to say, unless you love yourself, you actually don't have the ability to love others. And self-love is not a vain thing or anything else. It's just being content with who you are and in your belief system. And we're chatting around how people stop becoming or stop self-loving. Because if you look at like a child as an example, my son Dylan, he raced go-karts this weekend. And he kept saying to me when he was doing his practice and stuff, he kept saying, Dad, I'm the fastest here. I'll beat that kid. I'll beat that kid. And I kept saying to him, Dylan, no, my boy, don't say that loud. And I was actually putting him down in a way so that he didn't sound arrogant or vain. But in actual fact, what I was doing was actually killing self-love, because self-love is about belief in yourself. So we so often as parents don't actually realize how we condition our children's thinking just because we don't see it to be socially acceptable. And the reason we don't see it to be socially acceptable is because we don't understand what self-love actually is. We kind of think of it as being vain. And a strong belief system in yourself is so important for personal, for business, for everything. So well done. I really enjoyed that. That was great.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, it's such an important one to not overlook.
Without a doubt. Are there any questions from anyone on the webinar? I see there's quite a few people on the Facebook page following us, but I don't know if they can post questions or anything on here. I don't know if there are any, but if there are, please shout.
Folks, if you'd like to ask any questions, you're welcome to raise your hand and I will unmute your mic, or alternatively, just pop on the Q&A and you can type a question and we will happily answer what you've got on your mind.
Whilst we're waiting, I think for the first question, just in terms of business, we have seen people talking themselves out of business. This social conditioning of I need to talk to someone. So what's the first thing we're going to talk about? Well, let's talk about COVID, because that's the most common thing, which has been driving, I think, everybody insane now. But it's almost like, instead of saying, hi, Trevor, how are you? And you say, I'm doing well, your automatic response conditioning now is, yes, things are hectic, eh? Yes, it's tight. Even if it's not, it's just an automated response that people have got just to make conversation. And I found people that are in business that have got absolutely nothing to fear under the COVID regime. They 100% able to operate, yet they will still tell you that things are tight and talk themselves into recession. It's actually quite crazy how belief system and words, what you say is what you think. What you think, now your brain is sitting with your RAS, sitting going, I'm thinking it, let me find proof that it's real. And then that becomes, as soon as your brain finds proof, it becomes your belief system and your reality. And you just start this endless spiral down. So if anyone on this chat is actually battling with that, give us a shout. It doesn't cost you anything. We'll gladly sit and help you and just prop you up, give you a little bit of a shake up and get you back on track again.
Yeah, that's a brilliant observation, Gary, because as you said, it's become like the new how's the weather kind of small talk.
Yeah,
and also people talk, you also hear people say, oh, in this country, this will never work, or in my kind of business, this will never work. And then, but if you're saying that kind of thing, but you're still in business, then you're setting yourself up for failure, because you can do all the strategies, but you're telling your own brain it's not going to work. So then why even get into the rings? So
yeah.
anyway, what I'm going to do is I've got that 8:30 that the guys are just ready to kick off there. So I'm going to excuse myself, and if it's good with you, I'll let you handle the Q&A, and the guys, if anybody needs me, give me a shout.
Wonderful.
And then we'll get on the call. I think our next one's in 3 weeks time, the next date. So Roxanne will send out the dates to everybody, and we can follow on the next one. But that was brilliant.
Wonderful.
Nice to connect with everybody.
Thanks, Trev, and good luck.
Thanks, Gary. Everybody in Gary's hands. Throw some good questions at him. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, mate. Keep well.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Folks, just to let you know, at the end of this, you will be receiving an email which has the link to register for part 2 of the series, which will take place in 2 weeks' time. So we look forward to seeing you. And yes, if you've got any questions, please pop them through.
I think we're all good there, Rox.
Perfect, yes. So folks, when you receive that email, you're welcome to reply. Oh, there we go. We've got a question from Gregory. Thanks, Gary and Trevor, for your sharing. My biggest challenge in business is cold calling and reaching out to a new client. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this topic.
Cool, thanks, Gregory. Look, cold calling is a challenge. I don't know what type of industry you're in, but ideally, cold calling is something that you want to try and avoid. The main reason is that everybody's cold calling everybody nowadays. Call centers drive most people to drink. I would suggest, if possible, the people that you cold call, once you've got someone online, is actually rather try and work with warm referrals and change your whole approach to your business. So as an example, in financial services, I'll use that as an example. In financial services really are a grudge purchase. Not everybody wants insurance, but people need it. So it's a necessary evil. We have yet to date had someone pick up the phone and say, "Hi, Gary, listen, I need insurance. Please, can I come and see you?" Generally, we've got to engage with people. So how I would have started out is to go to my nearest and dearest in terms of our products that we offer. And I would have asked for a warm introduction to 3, 4, 5 people who they felt would benefit from our discussion that we've had. And I would rather go that route and then pick up the phone and say, "Hi, Gregory, it's Gary here from Quattro. I've recently met with Roxanne and I've helped her with some of her structures in her business, which she's found exceptionally beneficial. And she's asked me, please, to give you a call to come and sit with you and just show you a little bit about what we've done and see if there's anything I can assist you with." So rather go that route with a warm referral as opposed to a cold call. If your business is such where you have to do a cold call, I would try an approach where you can almost get to be a break the no trust barrier to start with. I think that's essential in a cold call, and not come across like a call center person, because those call center people, I mean, I laugh. They'll phone you and say, "Hi, Gary, how are you?" And I'll go, "I'm fine." And they'll go, "I'm fine too, thank you." Or "I'm fine, thank you." And I'm thinking, I didn't even ask how you are, but you're answering. It's almost like they're a robot. And then they'll go on to their sales pitch. So I would really try and find an approach that would work particularly well for your clients to try and break that no trust barrier and come across friendly. Don't come across with a regimented, documented approach. We, in sales environments, use what we call sales tracks or telephone techniques, but they're very generic textbook stuff. But what we advocate is that it rather develop one that works for you and your personality style. I don't believe that it's a cookie cutter approach where you can just one thing. But yeah, if you want to have a chat offline, I'm more than happy to do it. It would probably be easier if I could understand the nature of your business and who you're calling on. But yeah, my answer in short is try and rather avoid cold calls and rather try and work with a warm referral from previous customers who've either enjoyed dealing with you or had good service from you in the past.
Thanks, Gary. Gregory sent another message just saying that he is in social media marketing. Okay. So I'm not too sure if there's any insight you could maybe assist him with that.
Look, social media, I mean, it's such a broad thing. It depends on the type of product that you're doing. again, if it's a call center type approach, I personally don't enjoy call centers. I would say you'd need to try and find a track that would not come across rehearsed in any way. But again, even in social media marketing, you've still got a customer base. So I would still try and leverage off that customer base and rather try and work with a warmer introduction rather than a cold call. But if cold call is the only way to go, then it all comes down to developing a telephone technique that works for each individual person. I don't think that you can have one type of technique that works for every single individual. I don't know if I've answered your question, but if I haven't, give us a shout and I can sit and maybe address it in a little bit more detail, with a little bit more understanding.
Thanks, Gary. Folks, does anyone else have any more questions? Please let us know.
I think also just to add, when it comes to business in general, I think a lot of people need to start, not a lot of people, everyone needs to start thinking differently about business. You know, I always think, why choose me to be your advisor? What differentiates my business from my competitors? And it plays to every single business, whether you're in the hospitality industry or whether you in tourism. What is your differentiator? And that's something that you really need to try and put out there and focus on. Also, look at things like experiences. People generally prefer a good experience than what they would just a great product. So when it comes to marketing, advertising, branding, try and be creative, seek expert help. I always look at very successful entrepreneurs, and I always look at what makes them different, what makes them stand out, because most business people aren't necessarily the smartest people in the room. I'm by no means successful in comparison to most, and I'm not the cleverest guy in the room either. But what I do, if I do something, I try and do it and surround myself with people that are more equipped than what I am in my areas of weakness. So again, when Trevor was talking about your environments, think of your environment also in the work environment. If you're not strong with numbers, surround yourself with people that are strong with numbers. If you're not strong in the technical side or the legal side, bring specialists in. If you're not great at marketing, bring specialist marketers in. But collaborate with people and collaborate with your teams. The amount of knowledge that is in your businesses already with your staff, they know your business more than you would ever know your business, because they've got different facets of it. Bring them in and co-collaborate and reinvent yourselves. Make yourself stand out amongst the crowd. I really believe that the time is now for people to differentiate themselves from their competitors. I mean, just webinars as an example. I mean, there's 50 million webinars going on all at once. It's like, well, why log on to this one? You know, the competition out there is just so big now. How do you get into new markets? I think it's so important to really have a hard look internally and try and figure your path going forward.
Thanks, Gary. We haven't had any additional questions pop up on there. I think let's leave it at that for today.
Lovely.
Folks, please join us for part 2. If you have any questions, the email you will be receiving will detail an email address that you're welcome to send us anything you need some assistance on. But we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Perfect. Thanks, Roxanne. Keep
Thanks,
well, guys.
everyone.
Thanks for joining us.
Have a good day.
Have a good week. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.